Beloved star, welcome. Really, really warm welcome to Elfin Pod, Immortal Star Pod, episode 39. And this one, shamanism, the multidimensional soul, and our ascension. I'd love to explore a little bit more about ascension and the way of the shamanic way. And I spoke of this in the last pod, and I have done in previous ones, waxing lyrical about some of the aspects of shamanic practice and how I feel they can really, really serve our ascension. But I'd love to expand on a few more aspects. And I sat down to write about this today to prepare for the pod, and I found myself writing almost 3,000 words just like that. So my intention once more is to share a brief pod. And this is partly because I'm still in flux from my summer rest and back into teaching. And I've also been in transition between places. I'm at my dad's now, where I'm looking after him for a while. So yeah, in a time of movement, a lot of movement. And like the earlier pod I made, the nomad soul of our ascension, I am finding that my own inner nomad soul is gaining a lot of strength and flexibility at the moment. I feel as though frozen structures that have held me in place for a long time now are dissolving, and I'm choosing those that I've held in place through any level of fear to embrace that dissolution and to trust, to really, really trust that dissolution, that ending, that loss of bounds that may have kept me safe before. And now they feel, I know that I need to let go of them in order to follow where the river of life is taking me. And so it's been a real time of movement, thus the shorter pod. And I will speak just a little of this. I will try and condense what came through 3,000 words of writing to a shorter message today. And I am looking at my notes because, well, there are lots of them, so I will look and refer from moment to moment. But yeah, I was thinking also, because writing is an interesting process. You can end up in your mind, and often with the pods, I go free flow. It's just this is a topic I feel is so multifaceted, and sometimes when I'm teaching or writing, or sorry, teaching or speaking about something that is very, very multifaceted, I do like to write those facets down so that I can stay in movement and navigate between them all. But the thing about writing is that things can also end up in the head and not entirely in that pulse of divine light heart consciousness, which is where I usually share from. And yeah, so I would aspire to do that again in this moment. So as I speak to you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and really find my heart pulse again of what guided me on that journey to inscribe so many words on that topic, ascension, the multidimensional soul, and the shamanic way. And what really called me to that, I was actually thinking, the starting place for me was thinking about spirit guides, and then thinking about the facets of the divine I am presence of our own avatar, celestial, soul star essence. And for many, the transition, when they start moving into the realms of their ascension, the transition is you tend to move your emphasis from having many external guides and teachers to the sentience of the realization of the self, and the knowing that the facets of your own divine soul star essence hold all of the wisdom that you need, and indeed that you can also access that. There is a sense, yes, I can access that. I can create with and through that divine I am presence of the one who I am. That stream of remembrance of who I am is accessible. And the emphasis tends to shift away from this idea of having spirit guides. And for me, I dance with both. And I'll explain a little bit about that. It's been a core part of the shamanic teachings. For me, it was the most beautiful sensation of, oh my goodness, there are beings by my side. And I lived in a very solitary way when I discovered shamanism. And it was the most magical and beautiful thing for me to be able to go for walks with my spirit guides, for instance, when I was often alone, to be with them, to dance with them, to be in presence with them. And a lot of the emphasis in my early journeys was in meeting my guides, my animal spirit guides, my guides from the celestial heavens. And I would say that has completely changed in the course of my own ascension journey. That has shifted so completely. But I don't feel I walk without guidance or guides, as it were. But my path has very, very little emphasis on that. It happens differently now. And I feel that ultimately our guides are facets of our own divine and I am presence, that it is the return of self, of the one who we are. And often there may be, in the way the guides that we experience, a lineage connection to who we truly are, a resonance, an affinity in the light. But as we begin our ascension journey, we more and more are meeting with, truly meeting with facets of our own divine being, and able to at first meet them like a guide, because it's almost as though they come to us from outside of ourselves. There is a consciousness of perceiving this other, and yet known as an aspect of ourselves in the realms of light, in the realms of spirit. And there is not the rejection of their role as something outside of ourselves as a guide, because actually that's a really beautiful interface as the connection reestablishes, but that you can relate to them as a guide. You don't need to force yourself immediately to say, I should know and feel and have integrated all that this aspect of me knows and holds. Instead, that we are able to enjoy the rapport, the sense of otherness. That's what we receive through relationship. It's otherness. And otherness comes through a differential in frequency. And the truth is, we haven't yet embodied them. We've just come into reconnection. The star of their energy may have lit somewhere within our heart, our body, our being, but the rest of us doesn't vibrate at that frequency yet. So actually, that experience of otherness is very, very real. And what I see is that when a part of us comes in like that, we begin this infinity loop, if you like, establishes itself. If we, through our sovereign will, choose it, if we say, yes, I want to become and receive this aspect of myself again, here and now, if we set forth that affirmation, then that process of becoming is set in motion, and we will transfigure evermore and shift into vibrational affinity and expression of this one. But in the journey of that, we can enjoy the rapport. We can speak with them, seek guidance, discover from them how to integrate their presence, how to integrate their wisdom, the healing, the light that they bring us. And so it's a gorgeous relationship to enjoy. I feel that multidimensionally, we don't need to become really strict with ourselves. Like there shouldn't be anyone else, in the light that I'm relying on. It's about me becoming myself now. That we can still enjoy that sense of rapport and otherness as a beautiful way that we learn and grow when we feel the resonance so to do. And with our own avatar soul presences equally, just not to put pressure on ourselves to feel I should know and be and act as this one. You may have made a deep multidimensional connection. They might have come in very strongly for you. And it feels as though from henceforth you should really have that mastered. But the truth is, it's a journey. And some of the practices I talked about in the shamanic teachings that I first received are really pertinent to this, that we are cultivating that transference, cultivating that rapport, and actually maximizing the journey of becoming this one through spending time together, through asking for their help and then following through on what they suggest, through dancing with them. Another very powerful way, I didn't mention this last time, I may have spoken about it in previous times, is to speak their language of light, to let it move through you. And I find it's a very useful practice, which I've only come into recently, is to use a time frame that because when I become very liquid, I go through phases where I become very liquid, very it's my sense of self and my spiritual practice is very diaphanous, very liquid, has very little form. And that does seem to be part of who I am. I'm open to that changing, but it does seem to be part of who I am. And I use practices, but it's light in that sense, very light. And yet, so I found myself quite surprised. This came through as a practice, and I found it hugely helpful, is for 10 or 17 minutes to speak the light language of that one, to speak as them. And that to sustain it for that length of time, to use that concrete time frame, is quite magical, because actually to be physically sounding for that long, that vibrational signature is very, very transfigurative. Your body becomes this sound chamber and receives so much through that, and so much of that consciousness gets to reach you. And so these ways, and dance is incredible, or any physical practice that you do. It could be yoga, it could be a workout in a gym, it could be a run, it could be any form of physical exercise, spiritual or not, it doesn't really matter. You can, the beautiful thing is, you can really let this one be with you when you're in that movement practice, whatever it is. And certainly if you're going simply for a walk, or free flow dancing, free flow movement in this way, that you move with them and let them inform your body, let them come in and invite that. So one begins to breathe as them, rhythms, cadences come in. And just to go back to the light language, when you speak that light language, that in a way one is learning to articulate a feeling, the feeling of them, to be in the feeling of them, and then let a physical articulation, a sound start coming through. And you might feel at first that your body is not able to make the sound of that feeling, or to mirror the sound of that feeling state. But that's the same if you learn a foreign language. It can be hard to pronounce at first. Your muscles, your mouth aren't used to producing those sounds. You've never asked your body to do this before. And so it needs to learn. And the physical practice is amazing for that, so that you go from the level of feeling them, sort of hearing them, as it were, in your interdimensional hearing, feeling them, to being actually expressive of them, which is such a joy of that aspect of yourself. So yeah, the shift from spirit guides to the self, that can really be encapsulated in the shamanic journey, when and as we are ready in our use of shamanic tools for our ascension, and in our flow and our going between the shamanic way and the way of ascension. It's very, very beautiful cross-fertilization, if you like, of these practices. And yeah, I haven't said many of the 3,000 words. That's only actually one small section in my introduction to that whole topic, but I found myself speaking about many different areas of shamanism and how they intersect with our ascension. So as I was speaking at the beginning, it suddenly popped in. I had a thought, and I will share each one of them, I believe, and I will remain open to the mystery if it changes, if, say, I share more than one in any given pod. But I think I will share them separately in each pod. So they are each immense topics. They're the ones I'd love to cover, like soul retrieval, like psychopomp work, like extraction, these huge aspects of shamanism, of the death and the rebirth process, of the hollow bone. All of these are very core shamanic concepts. The concept of going into ecstasy, the ecstatic, being the shaman who is the ecstatic. All of these facets that so deeply, deeply relate to our ascension and our return. So I think I'll go through those one at a time rather than piling them all into one pod, which might be fairly indigestible anyway. both to deliver, it would be an enormous flow, and to receive. So I'll gentle up and do it this way. So I hope that's felt whole and coherent and useful. Just that very simple reference to that shift over from spirit guides to that journey of return to the self, when it does feel in some ways like we start letting go of some of our stabilizers or the scaffolding that was there when we were rebuilding the self, if you like, returning to ourselves. And in some way, the shift over from spirit guides to that role of instead meeting with our own avatar and soul star aspects from the dawn is just such a shift over, and a really beautiful one. But we can bridge with it, and we can still really enjoy that relationship of spirit guidance from aspects of our own returning self, and enjoy that for as long as it lasts. I guess one last thing I'd love to say about that before I close is there's a point where the interfusion, the fusion together, becomes complete. And my friend Alana Starlight writes about this so beautifully in her book of Starlight that she is writing for the dawn, an incredible book of Starlight. I can't wait to see that enter this world. But it's the moment when that returning part of you interfuses, the alchemy, if you like, the fusion is complete. And it's kind of weird. You look around and that part of you isn't objectively visible. There's no more otherness. It is who you are. And it can feel a little empty and a little strange at that point. But the truth is, you've fully integrated that aspect. The union is complete. And chances are your soul is now going to enter another cycle of reunion, of calling in another aspect. And so you'll begin a whole new journey, and your interaction and your growth edge and your place where you feel grounded and landed and connected and inspired will occur differently and in a different dance with a different facet of divine energy and of the one who you are. Because that bit, that interaction has kind of completed itself. You are that now. It's flowing from within you. It will switch on and flow through and be with you whenever needed. And another adventure begins. As my teacher, Nancy Dancing Light, says, redefining ourselves infinitely. And we are in a time of great return and to enjoy this magnificent dance with ourselves. So much love, and yeah, awesome to share from you here. This is actually one of my rooms where I grew up in the attic, when I was from the age of 8 until, well, it's still my father's home. So here I am still. So amazing to share a pod from here. So much love and farewell for now. Kian Ara Tatian.